Hello, Lotus enthusiasts. My name is Stephen Duchesne from Hanson Engineering, and I'm here to introduce the new redesigned Plenum spacer for the Turbo Esprit intake to be able to get better airflow into the system. So, as you can see, this is a standard intake setup with no spacer, and this one over here is with our redesigned spacer. And in addition to the spacer, we have some other features that I'll introduce in this video. So this is the stock plenum as it comes on the car from the factory. And this plenum measured on the outside is 3 inches deep. And this one with our 1-inch spacer in it obviously is now 4 inches deep. This is the outside measurement. But what really makes the difference is the enlarged volume inside. So if you can see this, this is what the volume looks like after the plenum spacer is in there. If I do the same thing without the plenum spacer in there, it's hard to tell, but I'll show this in just a minute. It's much more of a restricted turn to get the air into the intakes. So what we did to illustrate this is we printed out the internal volume that you would get as far as the airflow passage here. And this is what the stock one looks like. And you can see in some places it's only about a 1/2 inch thick. Whereas if we go and do the same thing and look at the resulting airflow passage for the one with the plenum, that looks like this. And you can see there's quite a bit of difference between these two pieces, in that there's 1 inch larger area in here where the air intake going into the inside of the plenum, there's that much difference between these two setups. Okay, so this initial model test print that we did is just a standard plastic PLA fiber to be able to print this with, and we did this as an initial proof of concept to make sure that the model that we had was correct. But the actual piece we're printing out of this is PPS infused with carbon fiber. I think it's a 10% carbon fiber infusion into this. And this stuff is very dimensionally accurate. It's good up to 256 degrees centigrade, and it's extremely resistant to any solvents, including gasoline, ethanol, or anything. So this is a very stable piece. And by the way, these things are not solid. This is printed out of so this honeycomb pattern inside the part, it still has all the strength of a fully solid part, but because of the honeycomb pattern, this thing is really light. So we're not talking about increasing the weight of this piece hanging off the intake manifold by any reasonable amount. The only real big increase in weight comes from the longer bolts, which is marginal. So the honeycomb pattern keeps the part lightweight, but this carbon fiber infused PPS is really strong. And so, and again, like I said, it's resistant to solvents. It's good at high temperatures, so it's the stuff that people advise to use inside an engine compartment. So it's really the best piece to use for this. And this same material is what one of the big three automotive manufacturers uses to actually print intake manifolds from. So it's the advised type of material to use in this application. Now, in addition to the plenum spacer, one of the other things we've come up with that's part of the kit is an airflow splitter that fits in here like that. And as the airflow comes in from the intake into this plenum, it's split by this splitter to go to each side of this intake manifold. So the splitter helps to redirect the air and reduce the amount of turbulence inside this plenum. And one of the other pieces that comes with the kit to replace the stock bracket that comes with the car is the Lotus engineers knew that this manifold, the intake manifold, was a little fragile. So if you, Tim Engel, for instance, has warned me that if you're working on the car, you never want to put your weight on the plenum if you're leaning over the engine compartment, because these things, the intake manifolds, are known to crack. So when the Lotus engineers, the later cars, I think it was the SE models with the intercoolers, they had a bracket that went from the outside bolt on outside of the plenum on one of these bolts, and that bracket ran down to a bolt on the motor mount on the engine. And what that did is it featured enhanced support for this intake manifold, so that the weight of the intake manifold in the intercooler and stuff like that wasn't going to produce additional stresses on this lightweight intake manifold. So as a consequence of putting this spacer in, we had to re-engineer that bracket a little bit because of the altered geometry of the 1-inch thick spacer. So with the kit comes with a different bracket that has the correct geometry to account for the fact that this plenum, the outside of the plenum, has moved out an inch, altering the geometry of this bracket.